I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, January the 7th, where we've got receipts that are backed up now after many of these sales, especially your big high volume markets, shut down for 2 weeks. A lot of them shut down 2 weeks, some of them just 1 week, but then had light receipts on the other. But we've got a lot of calves to sell yet, guys, and your receipts are fairly well backed up. We're expecting big auctions in your high volume sales. Joplin Regional Stockyards is looking for 14,000 head of cattle here on Monday. They're starting at 4 a.m. Joplin's not one of those sales you're going to sit in falling asleep at night till midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. No, they do it the other way around. They start at 4 a.m. just on odd cattle and sort-offs and things like that. And the guys that want to buy them, they'll be there to buy them. But they'll be on big strings of cattle by sure 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and then sell on get on the high line when a lot of sales haven't even opened up yet. But starting at 4 a.m., 14,000 expected. Oklahoma National Stockyards expecting at least 12,000 head of cattle on Monday there, and then got a lot of good fancy consignments there. One of them on Nationals round is 350 head of red Angus calves, 60 days weaned from the Campbell ranches there. Be a slick deal there, and I tell you what, they'll top the market, whatever the market is on Monday. But you look at the board for last week, end of the week, February live cattle futures 121.92, down 78 cents from before Christmas now, 2 weeks before with all that holiday interruption. April live cattle ended the week last week at 124 even, down 82 cents than before Christmas. And you drop off to June, it goes down another $8.50. So that has really shook our feeder markets up here over the last several weeks, is that huge drop off from April to June. But January feeder cattle futures 144.90, down $2.45 than before Christmas there, that Friday before. March contracts 142.82 ending the week last week, $2.70 lower than before Christmas. Fat cattle market. We sold most of the cattle on Thursday in the Southern Plains last week at 123. Well, they hadn't sold most of your Northern Plains cattle. Friday, of course, the board was down hard on Friday, and so we saw the bulk of your live sales in the Northern Plains at 122.50. So we had a steady market in the Southern Plains and going to be slightly less than steady in the Northern Plains. Did see some more dress sales at 195, and looking at a pretty good movement last week in your 5 area feeding region for a holiday week. Box beef cutout values. Your average trade for last week on choice cuts was $215.75, which was up 62 cents from the previous week's average. Select cuts $209.65, up $2.20, and that's a choice select spread of $6.10 on a pretty good movement for a holiday week of 474 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, would be nice to get back to a regular slaughter week to see what kind of change speeds we're going to run early this year, and I assume they've got a lot of orders to fill. Probably had pretty good dispersal of their shelves and what product they had on hand over the holidays. So it'd be nice to see where we're at. Last week on a holiday week, pretty much shut down completely, or was shut down completely on Tuesday for New Year's Day, but 520,000 head for last week, and that was 25,000 head less than the previous week, or the previous year, I should say. But we did get one bit of positive news there. Late last week, over the weekend, you may not have heard about it, but we had a pretty influential publication from outside the industry say something positive about the outlook for cattle markets coming in 2019. Barron's magazine, published by Dow Jones and Company in New York City there, which is very influential. A lot of the big time investors look at it. They had an article in their magazine calling for futures, cattle futures, to be up as much as 15% as we move into this year. They cited three main reasons: the swine flu in China, which is old news to those of us that keep up with markets all the time, but weather cycles globally, moving into a cold cycle here, thinking that that'll pull weights down and could increase consumption too. But also the world production of beef, not just in the United States, but over the world, saying that it's going to be lower, and just really a positive kind of an article that might cause some money managers, people outside the industry, to invest in commodities, especially as volatile as the stock market's been here the last several months, especially the last couple of weeks. It might cause some guys that are a little bit spooked about the stock market to pull it out and invest in some commodities. And if they were sitting around reading their Barron's magazine this weekend, they've sure got cattle on their mind. And I would think that'll probably be a plus here heading into this week with some outside investment. And Lord knows we need outside long positions in our cattle futures, because the industry itself just puts so much hedging pressure on the board all the time that we can't find enough outside long positions. But look at some of your feeder cattle markets, your cash feeders for last week and your auctions. And we didn't have a lot of auctions. A lot of our high volume sales, especially early in the week, were still shut down. But we did have some specials and had some pretty good sized sales mid to late week last week. And in those sales, your feeder calves and all calves under 700 pounds were selling better. We're starting to see a lot of people buying calves for spring grass turnout already. There's just not going to be enough numbers of those lighter cattle available, and those that turn out a lot of cattle in the spring for summer grass know that they need to get started early buying those calves, or they're going to have too much in them. So they started buying those already, and a lot of farmers buying some lighter weight calves to feed, like in some 6-weight calves, because they'll eat up a lot of that cheap corn. And they were $2 to $5 higher on on those weighing under 700 pounds. Your heavier feeding calves, which those big giant calves are not that attractive to feed anyway, and your short yearling cattle weighing over 700 pounds, $2 to $4 lower, and has a lot to do with that big disparage between your April live cattle futures and moving off into your June. And a lot more to do with about your lot conditions. It's just so muddy around because the temperatures have been so mild up in the northern plains and the Midwest that it's just sloppy around, and they'd really love to have sub 30 degree weather. Sure, they like cold and clear, but just to keep things kind of short up a little bit where you can get around. But look at some individual quotes and some markets from late last week. Farmers Regional Livestock Market in Glasgow, Kentucky had a big sale on Friday of feeder cattle, and talk about loads of cattle out east for us guys up here in the 5-area feeding region and in the plains. But you look at these loads of steers in Glasgow, 700 to 850 pounders, bringing from 136 to 143 and a quarter, and they would be a lot greener than anything you can find in the plains of the Midwest. A premium market in Nebraska, Crawford, Nebraska, had close to 6,000 head of cattle there on Friday. Look at the market report from Cattle Market Central there. Look at your popular weights. 720 head of steers, 5-weight steers averaging 557 at 174.43 on the average. Almost 1,250 head of 6-weight steers averaging 648 at 161.36, and 926 head of 7-weight steer calves averaged 734 at 152.22. Our top individual quote come from St. Onge, South Dakota. St. Onge Livestock had 170 head string of 723 pound steers at 156.50. That's your feeder flash for Monday.